Hello, welcome, welcome, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Lolita Atkins, and I'm the program manager at the Undergraduate Research Center. And I have the pleasure of working with the NSF LSAMP Camp and MURPPS programs at UC Davis, as well as the IIFH program. And again, thank you for joining us for today's panel discussion, how a master's or a PhD degree can accelerate your career in mentoring and leadership. This is part one of the series, and we have a wonderful lineup of speakers tonight. So let's just jump right into it with our first guest, Dr. Jose Ballesteros, who is the director of the McNair Scholars Program.
Thank you, Lolita, for having me here this evening here with a great set of colleagues, and just the opportunity for us to be able to share a bit about my journey to PhD and a career in mentoring. So let me go ahead and bring up a set of slides that I have here just to go ahead and be able to show some graphics here as I speak. So give me 1 second. All right. So my name is Jose Ballesteros. I'm the director of the McNair Scholars Program here at UC Davis. And as I mentioned, really what I want to do today is walk you a little bit through my journey to a PhD and a career in mentoring. But it'd be a little bit odd to just jump in without really taking a step back and talking about my background and my roots. So I grew up in Stockton, California, not too far away from here, to farm working parents. And you know, Stockton is not too far, but it is definitely a world away culturally, you know, and in many other ways compared to a place like Davis. And so my parents are here. Here you see there on the picture on the right, that's the picture, excuse me, of my parents in Mexico City at La Villa. That's my sister there that my dad is holding. So this is back around 1977 is when this picture was taken. You know, my parents immigrated to the US and immigrated to Stockton because it was a place that had a lot of agriculture, similar to what they knew back in their hometowns, what they did back in Guanajuato, Mexico. And it was very similar work to what they did. So that's the expertise that they brought. So they worked in the fields. You see here are a couple of pictures of things that I remember. There on the left, you have the tomato picking back when it was manual. Of course, now a lot of this work is done by machine. But I put this picture and I put the dollar picture on the right because I remember the smell that those dollars would have when my dad would bring them home. And if you grow tomatoes or round tomatoes, you know, they have a very distinct smell, and that smell definitely permeates anything, clothing, anything that the people are around. And so my dad would bring those dollars home, and of course his clothes would smell of those tomato plants. It's something that definitely permeates and stays with me. On the bottom right, you have what was a bit more of the winter season, which was the pruning of the grapes. My parents were also employed by some wine producers, and so this was a lot of the work that happened very much cyclically throughout the year. I then left home. You know, it took a big jump again from Stockton to somewhere that was very different culturally, just the way the approach, the things that happened in San Francisco. And that was an intentional leap of going somewhere that was different. And so I went to San Francisco State, got a bachelor's of science in biology with a concentration in physiology there at San Francisco State University. And that really launched me into my career path that I am today. And I like to say that I really stumbled into research as being part of the RISE and MARC programs, which are programs similar to McNair, similar to CAMP, similar to MURPPS, very similar in that they assist students to prepare to go on to graduate school. And what I have here are a picture of a couple of the mentors that I had and a bit of the research that I conducted there as an undergraduate researcher. On the left is Dr. Frank Bayless, who runs the student enrichment office there at San Francisco State University. And I very much model what I do today as a mentor based on what he did, which was get more students from underrepresented backgrounds into research and prepare them to pursue graduate school. On the right is Dr. Moffitt, Dr. Chris Moffitt, who was my mentor there at San Francisco State University. And the research I did under him is here shown in the pictures below. And if you see on the left, you have a picture of a mouse that's pregnant, and a female mouse on the left that's pregnant, on the right, a male mouse. we studied what was called the Bruce effect. This is an effect where if you have two mice and you place them together, a female mouse and a male mouse, if the female mouse becomes pregnant, if you then remove the male mouse that got her pregnant and then put another male mouse that is not the male that got her pregnant, that female mouse will spontaneously abort her pregnancy. And so really our question was, what is really the mechanism that leads from the detection of what we believe to be chemo signals, signals from the urine that would be then carried up to the brain and have that Bruce effect to be expressed. So that was our main question. What is really driving the expression of this response? This really was a introduction for me into research, and that really led me then to pursue my PhD at UC Davis. I studied endocrinology first with Dr. Phyllis Weiss, there shown on the left. And really what you see is that there is a drop in the hormone levels, excuse me, in women as they age, excuse me. And so this drop in hormones, really what we were also looking at is what is the mechanism that is causing this change in the hormone levels. On the right, you have Dr. Leo Chalupa, who I did neurophysiology research with. Our main question there was, how are the signals and the connections from the retina in the eye made to the brain and then onto the visual cortex? So that was our main question that we had. And so this really was a time that really led to me a lot of growth, of course, in graduate school. And I always am truthful to say, you know, graduate school is tough. You learn a lot, excuse me, during that process, but it is a process during which you're going to develop immensely, a lot of times beyond those limits that you believe you have, or beyond what you think you can do. So it is a time of growth, but also, of course, a time of growing yourself professionally as well as you interact with those around you. So I was here at UC Davis for about 6 years, graduated with a PhD in molecular, cellular, and integrative physiology is what I was able to finish there in 2010. And here's a picture of me and my now wife there at the UC Davis stadium, a football stadium. This was during the Chicanx Latinx graduation that was held there at the stadium that year. And so having a PhD really launched me then into my career journey. And really what I have here is a set of just logos from the different places and different organizations that I have been associated with or employed with since I graduated. I started first teaching at the community college. I saw myself as my goal to go on and teach at the college level. So after graduate school, after earning my PhD, I went and taught at Solano Community College at Casinos River College, and also taught a semester over at Napa Valley College. This is really a time that I wanted to use to develop my teaching skills and the skills that I would be able to have to bring into the classroom. Then actually, after about a couple of years, I was offered to take on the MESA program, which is the Mathematics, Engineering, Science Achievement Program at Solano Community College on an interim basis. And I said, sure, you know, I'll take it on. This will be a great opportunity for me to learn and really to take on new responsibilities. And if I like it, I'll continue. And that really was the start of the journey where I am today. Now I am director of the McNair Scholars Program, which is a TRIO program, if you have ever been part of or heard of Upward Bound. Student support services, educational talent search, those are TRIO programs. And really what this program allows me to do is really to work with students that are low income, first generation, underrepresented, much like I was, much like I still am today, right? And assist these students to get into research. Really start thinking about a PhD, really start thinking about graduate school, and really looking to develop their skills as they move forward. So my really advice to you all is take advantage of all those opportunities that are out there. Places like UC Davis have a lot of different opportunities available to you, so definitely take advantage of them. Go to those conferences, go and talk to those different people that are going to be there and going to be champions for you as you look forward towards advancing professionally and personally. I'll leave you all lastly here with a quick picture of the McNair Scholars 2018 cohort. And I always say that my passion, what allows me to come to work every day, is really the work that I do with the students. And that really has always been an essential part of what I do, is that I always want to be working with students. This is a picture from the cohort that is now actually in their first year of graduate school, or will be soon entering their first year of graduate school. And I took a quick count, and about 10 of these students are either in graduate school or will be starting graduate school this upcoming fall. So that's really the beauty that this program allows me to work with these students from the time that they have little to no research experience up until the time that they are going into graduate school and have the essential training to make a positive transition. And so just want to say thank you again to Lolita and all of the other folks here, just for giving me the opportunity to be able to present to you all today. And I'll leave it there.
Thank you. All right, on to our next guest. Dr. Connie Champagne is the Director of Educational Enrichment and Outreach Programs.
All right, thank you. I also have some slides that I would like to share. So let me just pop this on. And I need to move things around a little bit here. Okay, awesome. Okay, so can everyone see my slides? Great, wonderful. Okay, so I'm really excited. Lolita, thank you for inviting me to talk about my journey to a career in mentoring and leadership. And this is a summary of lessons based on what not to do. So this is where I'm from. I'm actually going to take a kind of similar approach to what Jose took. So I am from a city that is located in the province of Saskatchewan in Canada. And you can see here, this is a picture of me. I was about 4 years old and I was in my backyard, and this is the way I spent the majority of my life in the snow. So yes, it was cold, and yes, the winters are very long there. So I'm a first generation student. I was the eldest of 2 kids. I was born in 1972. So here's a picture of me, and I've got my arm around my little sister here. And my parents were very young. My mom had me when she was 16 years old. And this is a picture of my mother, Joan, when she was marrying my father, Larry. And my mother completed the 9th grade, and my dad, he did graduate from high school, but he didn't pursue an education beyond that. Okay, I also come from a disadvantaged background. So my parents in particular come from quite humble circumstances. My dad, he did not have running water in his home until he was in high school, and his family moved around a lot in order to, in search of work. My mother was the second youngest of 14 children, and her father died before she started kindergarten, and she did spend some time in foster care. My dad worked, he had a lot of different jobs, but he worked as a truck driver delivering groceries all over southern Saskatchewan, which in the middle of winter gave my mother some pretty anxious times, and she was wondering if he was okay and if he would be able to come home safely. He also worked in a warehouse, and he worked as a janitor for a lot of years. And my mom had a variety of different jobs, ranging anywhere from working in coffee shops to working in a pharmacy. And so a little bit about my background. So first of all, for my undergraduate degree, just full out transparency, I had no idea what I was doing. I mean, I was completely naive. I was unaware of all the career options that a degree in biology would afford me. And I think it's really important to note that at that point, I did not have a mentor with whom I identified. I was a student in what they called the Faculty of Science, which included the departments of biology, chemistry, physics, and mathematics. And there was not one single woman who was a faculty member, not one. They were all white and they were all male. And I felt like I really needed to do everything on my own. I didn't reach out. I didn't reach out for help. But nonetheless, somehow stumbling around in the dark, I did get involved with undergraduate research, and that was a revelation to me. It was the first time that I could envision a future that involved scientific inquiry. Until then, I kind of really didn't know that I could be a part of that process. And so my undergraduate research really focused on the nature of extrachromosomal transgenic elements in this beautiful little plant here called Fiscometrella patens. It's a moss. And to this day, I still think it is absolutely gorgeous. For graduate school, I was even after participating in undergraduate research, I was really quite naive. I didn't realize that I probably should have gone to another institution for my PhD. And that is not to say anything bad about the U of R, where I went for my undergrad and my graduate program. But what I did was I stayed put at the U of R, and I even stayed in my undergraduate lab. And the problem with that was that my PI, the principal investigator of that lab, was quite inaccessible. My lab was extremely small. Sometimes I was the only person in that lab, and I was really isolated. And I thought this was how it was supposed to be. I didn't know anything different, and nobody advised me otherwise. And so I had this huge transition when I embarked on my journey to do a postdoctoral position at UC Davis. So I was awarded a Catherine Esau postdoctoral fellowship to pursue research at UC Davis. And moving from Canada to California and to a very large research institution was just this monumental, sort of staggering change. I was totally amazed by the differences that I saw. Diverse faculty, the impressive learning opportunities, mentorship at all levels. And I was just surrounded by people who really cared about learning and discovery and mentorship. And so I worked with Nilima Sinha. This is a photograph of Nilima. And together we worked on the evolution of development in plants. And so Nilima has a really large lab. And my postdoctoral experience really pushed me out of my comfort zone. And it did show me that I had what it took to be successful in a research career. But in addition to learning that I could be successful in a research career, my passion for mentoring really blossomed. I had the opportunity to mentor many undergraduates and graduate students. I was actually still at that point unaware that I could have a career in mentoring, but helping my mentees to avoid the many pitfalls that I encountered on my journey was really important to me. And then a position with a program called the Biology Undergraduate Scholars Program opened. And I had several people encourage me to apply. They're like, you should do this. You're an amazing mentor. And I was like, okay, I'll give it a try. I didn't know really what I was getting myself into, but I found my niche. So this position really allowed me to capitalize on my research experience and to pursue my newfound passion to mentor undergrads from marginalized groups. And very similar to what Jose expressed, I learned that the skills that I had developed throughout my academic and postdoctoral careers were highly transferable to, and not only that, really necessary for success in my current position. I also learned that I had a lot more to learn about mentoring, and that mentoring is a skill that one develops over time with practice and with guidance. Mentors need to be mentored. So in terms of my leadership development, I had the opportunity to grow the program that serve marginalized life science students. So I started off with the BUS program, and then I added several different programs to the umbrella or to the suite of the programs that we offer. I worked with various faculty to write grants and expand the number of opportunities for undergraduates. And I would just like to highlight an accomplishment that I had, that I was invited as a guest speaker at the NIH Advancing Diversity Programs Conference that was held on their main campus in 2019. So my advice for emerging mentors would be, as an undergraduate, you can learn a lot about how to be a good mentor by being an effective mentee. So don't hesitate to reach out to your mentors for advice. You don't have to do everything on your own. And also, I would encourage you to have multiple mentors. Don't just have one, but gather advice and perspective from many different sources. As you progress throughout your career, take advantage of mentor training whenever you can, because as I already said, mentoring is a learned skill. And I also want to point out that there are some really great online resources called, two of them that I'd like to draw your attention to would be the National Research Mentoring Network and also the Science of Effective Mentorship in STEM. This National Research and Mentoring Network also has great resources for undergraduates to learn how you can get the most out of your mentoring relationships. And in terms of my advice for emerging leaders, I actually want to point out that we have amazing resources on our campus. And I wanted to point out the Center for Leadership Learning. Their services are free. They offer workshops and certificate programs and events. And they help you understand what leadership is, and they also help you to identify and capitalize on your strengths. And then also, finally, have faith in yourself. Whatever opportunities you pursue, you will make those opportunities great. You are the secret ingredient. And so with that, I'd like to hand it back to Lolita.
Great, thank you so much, Connie. Okay, and again, we'll save the questions for the end. So I want to move on to the next person, who is the program director and postdoctoral fellow, Alexandra Colon Rodriguez.
Okay, I'm about to share my screen right now. Can you see my presentation?
Yes.
Awesome. Thank you so much for the opportunity. I'm so excited to be here. So my name is Alexandra Colon Rodriguez. I am originally from Puerto Rico, and I am currently a postdoctoral scientist in the Department of Neurobiology, Physiology, and Behavior, but I am the director of the Science Communication Program for faculty at UC Davis, a program that I developed. I am, as I mentioned, I'm a super proud Puerto Rican. That is who I am, and that is where my heart is and has been since I left there in 2009 to pursue my PhD. Puerto Rico is amazing, and it's hard not to miss, you know, being there for 23 years, the amazing beaches and the beautiful mountains. And so if you guys have never been, I have to take this 1-minute slide to tell you you should go there and eat our amazing food. One of the most interesting things and that I experienced by being here in California is that California has a lot of very nice similar things in national parks that take me back to home in a very nice way. And so I really enjoyed being here. I decided to move to Michigan to pursue my PhD, and I'll tell you a little bit more about that. But let me just continue the flow and just so I was born and raised in Puerto Rico. I come from a single mother home, and my mom, so this is my sister, this is me, my mom, and then a friend. And basically I was raised by a single mother that worked extremely hard. And so that led me to spend a lot of time with my grandmothers. And my grandmothers always instilled in me and my sister the importance of education. And so although my mom was a secretary, and when I met my dad, I learned that he worked in maintenance. I always knew that, you know, I needed to work hard and study and obtain a degree, whatever degree it was, because that was embedded in me since I was very little. But because I was not in a family where none of my family members went to college, I never really thought about college. I was really good at school. I enjoyed learning, but I also was very concerned about helping my mom. And so when I was around in, like, let me say, like my 8th grade, I started thinking, okay, so what can I do as a profession that I could pursue, that it will be quick and I can continue helping my mom and also just, finish the degree and then continue helping her as I was doing. And so I was like, you know, maybe I will get a degree. I was really good in science. Maybe I'll get something like that would allow me to work in a pharmacy or something, or not a technical degree. And so I think that basically took me to kind of like this journey of self-reflection. And so I started thinking, okay, I'm good at science. I really enjoy it. I don't like I don't like social studies. I really don't like Spanish. I like history, but it's not my passion. And so then when I was in this journey, I realized that, oh my goodness, like I'm graduating high school and I don't know what to do. And so I graduated high school and I started a biology degree, which I then switched to microbiology with the thought of, okay, I'm getting a science degree. I'm passionate about science. When I finish a microbiology degree, I can go into industry and work, and then I can continue helping my family. But during that time, I started establishing a relationship with my dad, who is in this picture, and my sister's here on the left side, and here I'm on the right side. And my dad, when I was in my junior year in undergraduate, was diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder. And I had no idea, I have heard of the disease. I didn't know a lot about it, but I learned a lot because I really wanted to understand what was going on with him. And it was really difficult to maintain a relationship with him. And so I really wanted to understand what's going on in the brain of people that have this type of disorders. And so I became obsessed with learning about the brain. And that led me to basically learning that there is a career or a field that's called neuroscience. And neuroscience is the area basically that studies the nervous system and the disorders that affect them. And so that's when my dad passed away. It was like an enlightened moment when I was like, I was like, this is what I need to do. I'm extremely passionate in understanding why the brain changes, how it changes, and maybe I'll be able to help people that are or weren't through the same situations that I went through with my dad, trying to have a relationship, which was difficult because he had this brain disorder. And so I'll share with you right now that my personal and life experiences have always guided my professional decisions. The research that I follow, the questions that I follow through my research, and the passion for seeking knowledge. And you'll see this in my presentation reflected on everything that I've been involved in. And so as an undergraduate, when my dad passed away, I realized that I was a junior. I didn't have any research experience. And I kept seeing that in order to become a scientist or apply to grad school, you need research experiences. And so I applied through the CIC application where you apply to 10 institutions. And the only institution that gave me an opportunity was the McNair's ROP program at Michigan State University. And so I had that first experience at Michigan State University. And that one research experience as a summer student changed my life completely. I felt empowered. I owe the McNair program and I continue to give back. The McNair program is not at Michigan State anymore. Now they have the SROP, but I mentored students and I continue to present and be in panels because I wouldn't be here without that program. And I understood the importance of having mentors that believe in you and that give you the resources that you need to become successful. And so I believe that being part of not only research programs like this, but having this group of mentors or people that can provide you the tools or the guidance you need to kind of identify this is maybe what I want to do is extremely important. And so because MSU gave me an opportunity of my first research experience, there's something about that one first experience when people believe in you that you feel something really strongly about. And so I went to Michigan State and obtained my PhD there. And I had the opportunity to go somewhere else like Northwestern, but I decided not to because they gave me a chance. And so I felt like that's where I belonged. And so I obtained my PhD in two areas. I did a dual major PhD. I did it in neuroscience and environmental toxicology. And the reason why I did this is I had no idea what toxicology was, by the way. But the reason why I did this is because toxicology is the study of how environmental stressors or chemicals can cause changes in biological systems. And this is exactly what happens in the disorder of post-traumatic stress disorder. And so I was able to combine these two areas. And so for research as a grad student, I'm not going to go into details, but in this graphical abstract, I'll just show you a summary. One of the main findings that I had as a scientist in grad school was I studied this heavy metal called methyl mercury. And this heavy metal is present in fish, and is one of the reasons why pregnant women cannot or shouldn't consume fish, right? And so basically what I was trying to understand, this heavy metal causes different neurological symptoms. And one of them is motor dysfunction, and it's not understood why the motor or how the motor dysfunction happens. And so what I wanted to do was to go more in depth and understand what are the molecular changes, or how is the cell, the specific cell that has to do with motor function, dying as a result of this heavy metal. And so I did this by using human-induced pluripotent stem cells. So I took these cells that were induced to become, there were blood cells that were induced to become motor neurons, and then I exposed them to toxicologically relevant heavy metal concentrations. And then I identified that the cells are dying in a concentration dependent manner through a mechanism that involves calcium. Calcium is a very important ion in the cells in order to, for neurons, in the cells of the nervous system, one of the cells of the nervous system, in order for them to communicate. And so if calcium is in regular levels, it's good, they communicate, but if it's too high, they die. And so this is what happened in a nutshell. And then I also realized through my journey in grad school that I was a first gen, I came from a low income background. I also realized that I was like the first Puerto Rican in my grad program and the only one for 2 years. And so I was like, I had to do something that I can continue to be engaged with the people that I love. And so I developed this program called Bridge to Neuroscience program, which I published an article about it in 2019. And basically it's a one-day hands-on neuroscience program where I go to Puerto Rico and I teach students about neuroscience. And I do this with high schoolers and undergraduates. And I think that that's one of the ways that I've gained leadership confidence. And I've also done a lot of training in leadership, actually, and in mentorship, because I want to be the best mentor that I can be. And then I've also started initiatives like this one called STEAM 135, and it's for amplifying the work of Puerto Rican scientists, female scientists. And I've had the opportunity also to develop and lead now the science communication faculty training program at UC Davis. And so I think that the opportunity to do a PhD, the skill sets that we gain, in terms of critical thinking and, trying to identify problems and finding ways to solve those problems translate very well to the things that I've done through communication and leadership. And now, as at UC Davis, I lead this program that is in collaboration with the University of California, San Diego, and we have funds through the Moore Foundation. And my current research is pretty amazing because under Dr. Rebecca Calisi, I get to study how single parenting changes the emotional center of the brain. And that's super personal to me, especially because I'm studying how it changes in offspring from single parents. And that's me, right? Although I'm studying it in a pigeon, there's a lot of similarity in this brain region of a pigeon compared to humans. And so I find it extremely rewarding to continue pursuing questions that are really personal to me. Because when you find something that you're so passionate about, you will be unstoppable. So my advice in terms of mentoring and leadership. So I think, of course, it's like any type of thing. We always have to be working on it. But mentoring requires investment and encouragement. We need to be able to listen and be honest when we receive feedback and to give feedback. I think that we need to be able to understand ourselves well to be able to lead others. And I also have learned that good leaders don't care about things, they care about people. And this, I learned that in a book that's called The Art of Leadership that I recommend to all my mentees. And then to finish, I'll say that if I were to think about anything about my legacy as I continue in this journey, to think about my next steps, my most important thing and role has been to be a mentor and to lead and mentor people, more than 25 students, underrepresented students in research, more than 25, now I'm like at 30, but yeah, to give others, to pour back what was given to me. So yeah.
Thank you so much, Alexandra. I really appreciate that. And I do want to mention that the next, SACNAS 2022 will be in San Juan, Puerto Rico, October 29th to the 31st. Here's a link for that. So all of you scientists, you should.
I'll be there, and I will be telling all what you should be consuming in terms of food, not alcohol though.
Right. Well, hopefully you can show me around as well. Awesome. All right. So our next guest is Raynelle Hamilton Starks, and she is the Director of Transitional and Enrichment Programs and Services.
Good evening, everyone. I'm sorry I don't have slides. Been having some technical issues this evening, but I'm super excited to be here with you all tonight. I'll just share a little bit about myself. Like Alita said, my name is Raynelle Hamilton Starks, and I work in OES over in South Hall. I grew up in Sacramento, first generation college student. I went to a very poor high school, if any of you are familiar with the area. I went to Grant High School. I'm a proud Pacer. Proud of the school I went to, not very proud of the education that I got there, but it was good enough to get me off to college. So I was able to go to college at University of the Pacific, which was probably one of the most amazing experiences of my life, being a college student. I had a lot of fun, met lots of great people, had lots of great experiences. But when I was getting ready to graduate in my senior year, in one of my communication courses, we had a guest speaker, and the guest speaker said, well, how many of you plan to be PR rock stars? And me and all the other people in my class raised their hands. And I must say that I was the only African-American woman in the class. And I think there was one African-American man in the class. But we all raised our hand. We're like, yeah, we're all going to be PR rock stars. And he was like, well, plan to live at home forever, because there's really not opportunities in this business currently right now. And so that just shattered my entire life. So I left that class that day and ran straight to my TRIO advisor. Shout out to all the TRIO scholars out there. My TRIO advisor, and she let me cry on her couch for a little while. And then she gave me a tissue and asked me if I was finished. And I said, yes, I'm done. And then she said, well, go to graduate school. And I said, well, what is graduate school? And she began to tell me about all these opportunities that I could have if I were to continue my education. Again, being a first generation college student, you just think going to college, you're going to get a job working at a desk. But that wasn't the reality. So she guided me and directed me, and I applied to a few graduate programs. And I decided to stay at University of the Pacific and earn my master's in education, both focusing on student affairs and student development. And that was really a great experience for me. I love education. I love student affairs. I loved being a college student. I think if I were able to be a professional college student, I probably would have done that at that particular time in my life, because I had such a great time. And so I got my degree in student affairs and began working in TRIO programs, and really found my passion for working with and supporting underrepresented students who look like me, students who had whose histories were the same as mine, students who needed some puffing up, students who needed support. And so I worked in the TRIO program for a few years, and then an opportunity opened up for me to come and work at UC Davis. And I've been here ever since. I love working at UC Davis. I love working on a college campus. I love working with college students. I think that I was, placed on this earth to really support students on their journey through college, with however that pans out to be. I am meant to be a support person for students. I love watching students grow. I think that if I had to give students advice on where they are now and where they should go from this point, I think that I would encourage students to just make sure that they have a person identified, make sure that they know who their support systems are. College is hard, and it's supposed to be hard. It's meant to be hard, but it's also meant to be an opportunity for growth. And I think that you can do that if you have the right people in your corners. So make sure that you have good faculty mentors, but also make sure that you have other people that you can kind of bounce ideas off of. I think having a community of people is also helpful. And so I'm happy to be here with you all tonight. I'm looking forward to some Q&A. I'm sorry I don't have any slides for you all today, but I'm super excited to be here and talk to you all tonight. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Raynelle. And we'll go on to our next guest, who is Mark Lopez, the Chief of Staff to the Vice Chancellor of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion.
All right, if I could have the shared screen. Yep, let me see here. Can y'all see that?
No.
No, hold on. Oh, sorry. There we go. How's that?
Great.
Better? All right, good evening, everyone. My name is Mark Lopez, and I serve as the pleasure of serving Vice Chancellor Renetta Garrison-Toll in the Office of Diversity, Equity, Inclusion here at UC Davis. So this evening, I'm going to tell you a little bit about my journey, my background, as well as my professional self. This here is my El Concilio. This is my mentoring community. This is my mentoring circle. Many who are elders, many who I've known since I was a high school student, many who I consider family, many who are peers in this group, and I'm very connected to this day. Others I've lost touch with, but at some point in my journey have mentored me in some capacity. I'm gonna come back to this slide. So a little bit about myself. Born and raised in inner city Phoenix, Arizona. Grew up in a working class community, working poor community whose family lived paycheck to paycheck. Very much that was our culture, that was our lifestyle. Success for me coming up in my community in Santa Rosa Barrio, this was the name of our community, was one of the original missions in Phoenix, Arizona, when I was Mexico. Success for us was staying out of jail, not getting hooked on a narcotic or alcohol, or graduating high school. That was success. That was what was preached to us growing up. Don't get locked up. Don't get hooked up on some substance. And then you made it. You made it in our community if you did not end up on that track. That's what was constantly relayed to me coming up in my community. I'm a proud product of the Upward Bound program. As I mentioned in the chat, TRIO does work. First in my family, my entire family, to go to college. I must share that Upward Bound saved my life, as I know it did others as well. Coming from my community, as I mentioned, it was a hard community. This program, specifically Upward Bound, instilled the cultural capital of what higher education stood for my family. They educated us, not only myself, but my family, on the importance of a college degree, what steps we needed to take to pursue a college degree, to succeed from an institution of higher education. But because of Upward Bound, I'm sitting with you today, sharing my journey. I went to Arizona State University, where I also attended the Upward Bound program. Graduated in 4 years, founded a national community service for fraternal and academic fraternity. Was heavily involved in organizations such as MECHA. Obtained a master's degree as well. Stayed on board at Arizona State to obtain my master's. While I was at Arizona State University, as you can see, a long time ago, and a lot of hair, a long time ago as well. I was at Arizona State when the student population was 64,000 students. So I was an ID number. I was easily lost in the sea of students and looked for ways to connect. And as I mentioned, got super involved in a number of organizations. But it was at my undergraduate experience where I felt that cultural shock, that I felt like an outsider. I felt that I did not belong. I felt that I did not see myself reflected in the faculty, in administration, and even staff. In Tempe, Arizona, which is a suburb of Phoenix, a border state to Mexico, I felt this sense of cultural shock, and it kept asking these questions: what is happening? Why am I not seeing myself? Where are the other brown kids at this major university, research extensive university at the time? Again, with 64,000 students. So I began to ask those tough questions that guided my my pursuit of my graduate degree. I then went east to the University of Maryland College Park, where I received my doctorate, my PhD in education policy, where I studied. I went to study. Let me take a step back. Where I went to study campus climate as it pertains to diversity, equity, and inclusion. But when I stepped foot at the University of Maryland College Park, which is a suburb of Washington, D.C., again, did not see myself, not only in the student body, nor the staff, faculty, or administration. I asked the question, where's my raza at? Where is my community? Come to find out that the largest Latino community in the state of Maryland was literally 1 mile away from the institution. And there was no engagement, no outreach, no intentionality, no services provided to this community that was 1 mile away. Again, asking those tough questions to the institution on why are we not serving not only the Latino community, but also the African-American community in the greater Washington, D.C. area. And this ultimately guided my research agenda, which focuses on not only college access, but student success in higher education, both at the community college level as well as at the university level. So let me take a little bit more about my journey. This is my foundation. These are my parents, who I would not again be here with you this evening if it wasn't for them that instilled the values, morals, and love to show me that anything was possible. These are my rocks here. This is my grandmother and my godmother, who are sisters, who for the first time for my doctoral graduation left Phoenix, Arizona. They had never been outside of the state of Arizona, but they came to my graduation for my doctorate, and they are my foundation, my rocks, my life partner, my wife, my significant other, who supports me professionally, supports me personally in all of my endeavors, who I know I would not be here at UC Davis if it was without her love and support as well. And I must note, this was a Dia de los Muertos sidebar competition at the Mexican Cultural Institute in Washington, D.C. And yes, we did take first place in best dress for that evening. I just had to throw that out there. Again, my mentoring circle, El Concilio. This was my mentoring community since high school till today. A number of individuals that I shared and stayed connected with that I've lost connections to, but at some point touched my personal as well as professional and educational journey. Folks that range from college presidents, policy researchers, faculty, trio directors, counselors, diversity officers, advocates, activists. But this is my community. This is my mentoring circle. This is my El Concilio, as I like to call them. That without them, without their support, without their guidance, without their counsel, I would not be at UC Davis and serving as a chief of staff to a vice chancellor today. So I've dedicated my career to impacting college access, retention, persistence, and student success. Someone that has kept diversity, equity, and inclusion at the forefront throughout my entire career, and dedicated that career to ensuring students have every opportunity to succeed. I want to continue to build a college-going culture, not only for students that are behind me, because I know I stand on the shoulders of so many individuals that paved the way for me to be not only a product of the Upward Bound program, but to be at the table in a leadership role at UC Davis. So I'm very mindful, very cognizant of those individuals that built a college-going culture for me, but what this has done for my family, what I continue to do for my community and others of historically marginalized backgrounds in higher education. So my role at UC Davis, real quickly, I know I'm running out of time here. Again, serve as chief of staff, but also prior to Davis and continuing to do so while at Davis, I serve as an education consultant and strategist. These are some of my clients that I've worked with throughout my career. The Association of Public and Land-Grant Universities, the Association of Veterinary Medical Colleges, the American Dental Education Association, Arizona State University, the Texas Higher Education Coordinating Board, so on and so forth, where I've had the role to the significant privilege and been extremely blessed to research, shape, study, create policy programs at a localized level, at a campus level, but also at a state and national level as it pertains to student success and DE&I, diversity, equity, and inclusion. So last 2 cents I would like to share with you regarding mentorship. I heard previous president, Dr. Francis, who was a past president at Xavier University of Louisiana, that resonated with me about growing your replacements. As a staff member, as a professional, as a leader, we must constantly reach back and mentor those that are coming up in the pipeline, in the pathway to their careers, because we're not going to be at this forever. As much as we would like to, as much as we are committed, as much as we're passionate about our body of work, whether it is scholarship in academia, policy, or diversity, equity, and inclusion, we must reach back and grow those replacements. I do want to share that while I was at Maryland, just another tip to remind yourself as you're pursuing graduate and professional education, to remind yourself that you are not crazy. Let me say that again. You are not crazy. This journey that you're on, as difficult and as challenging as it is, and it's going to be. It's going to be. But I want you to remind yourself, you are not crazy. All right. Thank you very much for the time. And I look forward to Q&A with y'all. Si se puede.
That was great. Thank you so much, Mark. I really appreciate you sharing your story with us. Next up is Lena Mendez, who's the Associate Director for UC Davis Chicanx and Latinx Retention Initiative. So feel free to, you're already sharing your screen.
Thank you, Lolita. I am
You're
just
welcome.
so excited to be here with my wonderful colleagues. And I also want to do a shout out to some of my students that I saw on the list. So thank you all for being here, and some of our colleagues too, some staff across campus that are here as well. So gosh, there's just so much to say in so little time. So I'm going to try to add to what other people have already said and tell you some new information as we go along. So first of all, I want to start off by showing you a picture of me when I was a young person. And I like to say that here's where it started. I still have my smile. I still have my big eyes. My hair turned curly, so things change in life. But I want to start off with this picture because I too come from a single mother who was a farm worker. I'm the youngest of three, the only one that graduated high school and went on to college. And we were low income. You know, I had work study jobs through college. And, you know, sometimes when we live in conditions like that, we cannot envision how things can be different. And when we start in places like that, it's hard to see who we can become, where we can go. But it's such a great reminder that we are amazing human beings. And as I continue to share through my presentation, you're going to see how I was able to make it. And it's never a journey that we travel alone. So I want to start off by telling you that I was raised in Idaho and grew up in Idaho. So when people talk about the lack of diversity, Idaho is really out there. I remember attending Boise State University. And the only reason I went to Boise State was because I had a boyfriend that had gone there. So I went chasing after the boyfriend. And it was a university of about 15,000 students, and there were only 500 Chicano Latinos. So literally, you would go through campus all day, and in my classes, I was the only one. I would look around and I'm the only Latina. Across campus, you would see someone with black hair and be like, oh, do I know them? Right? You would get so excited because really there was no diversity. And I lived on campus. I was so fortunate to receive scholarships that covered a year and a half of my tuition, including the dorm. And Boise State was only 30 minutes away from where my family lived, but I didn't have a car. I couldn't get there. So I was fortunate enough to live on campus. So 2 years later, after being at Boise State, that boyfriend, we broke up and I was devastated. And I decided to do a national student exchange program, just like we have study abroad. At the time we had a student exchange, and I chose Arizona State University, but Mark, they didn't get back to me soon enough. New Mexico State, and then the University of Texas. And I ended up at New Mexico State. And I can't tell you the first time I went to the grocery store there, and I literally just stood there because everyone looked like me. And that feeling, that sense of belonging, it was it was a feeling I had not felt before in many, many years. And it was, for me to walk across my campus and see Native American students, and not just one or two, but groups of them, right? To see buildings on my campus that were named after last names that I knew, like Garcia, and different like names I could pronounce, was so meaningful. To have our food be like green chile burritos, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm in heaven. I could eat them every day. And I think sometimes we take it for granted what it feels like to feel like you belong. I had faculty that looked like me, staff that looked like me all over campus, students that looked like me. It's an HSI, a Hispanic Serving Institution, and that's what UC Davis is trying to become as well. So I ended up, getting the Gates Millennium Scholarship. That first year it was awarded, and it allowed me to transfer, and it paid for my out-of-state tuition. So I ended up staying at New Mexico State University and graduating from there. And what was so amazing about that experience is that there was a Chicana faculty member, Enedina Garcia, who's amazing, Dr. Enedina Garcia. And she was this little tiny person, but she was a powerhouse. And she, we worked together on a scholarship, the Wilson Woodrow Scholarship. And I didn't get it. It was highly competitive. But then she said, I want to nominate you for this Gates Millennium. And I said, okay. And then she's like, do you want to apply? I said, let's do it. So I applied, and I was one of 1,000 students that received it. And this particular scholarship would pay for my undergrad, my graduate, my master's, and my PhD to the college of my choice. So when I got that scholarship, I literally felt like I won the lottery. I felt like, you know what? The sky's the limit. This little Chicanita from Boise, from Idaho, that is now here, can dream about getting a master's. And unfortunately for me, I missed all of the deadlines for McNair, for other programs, and because I was a transfer student. So, but I still associated with people who were in those programs. So by affiliation, I would get some of that knowledge, some of those, all the goodies they used to get. And ahí me pegaba, right? And it was so fun to have colleagues that share information with you, that support you, that encourage you. There's a Spanish saying that says, dime con quién andas y te diré quién eres, right? So who you hang around with really matters. That's not the direct translation, but that's really what it means. So if you hang around with people who are positive, who are go-getters, it's gonna make a difference. If you hang around with other people, that's also gonna be you. So we have to make choices. So, after that, I remember calling the scholarship and saying, do I have to stay at my university, or can I go somewhere else for my master's? Because I didn't know, right? Just like others were sharing, like, do I have to, and they said, no, you can go anywhere you want. And I remember saying, even Harvard? And they said, if you can get in. And at that moment, I didn't even know where Harvard was. Like, I didn't even know what state, much less what city it was in. I had just heard of it. So I was like, okay. So I applied to 2 schools for my master's program. Harvard was one of them because I didn't think I was going to get in, and University of Massachusetts, Boston. And that's where I really wanted to go because there was a great mentor there that one of my faculty knew, and he had done work with Paulo Freire, Donaldo Macedo. And I absolutely loved his reading, listening to him. Like, he was just amazing. And I got accepted to both. And I didn't know what to do because I really wanted to go work with him. But then Harvard is Harvard. And I remember him telling me, Lena, I think it's important for you and your family for you to go to Harvard, and you can come see me once a month. So once a month, I would go to his office hours, 45 minutes across in the train, and he would mentor me. And then his wife, Lilia Bartolome, who's another amazing Chicana scholar, also mentored me. So I was so fortunate to be able to have great mentors. While I was at Harvard that year, we had so many Latino scholars there. And I was so fortunate to take as many as I could. And I felt totally out of place, didn't feel like I belonged, didn't feel like I was the best writer. When you compare yourself to people from Yale and Princeton and Brown and, everyone who had gone to undergrad at these prestigious schools. And here I was from New Mexico State University, so far away from home. And I want to share with you, when I started at Harvard, I think I was only 2 or 3 weeks in, and I called my brother, my oldest brother, and he's 15 years older than I am. He's like a dad to me. And I remember telling him, I said, I don't think I can do this. I feel so far away from all of you. It's so hard. I just don't think I can do it. And he told me, he goes, you better finish what you started. And I remember I was crying, right? And I remember just feeling like, wow, like this is the kind of love and support that I'm going to get from my family. But you know what? It helped me because it helped remind me that, you know what, their lives were not any easier. You know, that they were so proud of me being at Harvard. And it wasn't until later that my brother would tell me, he was working at Costco at the time, in the pizza place. And he would tell his friends, like, my sister's going to Harvard. And they would look at him and say, like, you're lying. You know, like, that can't be true. Who from Idaho, who's Mexican, can go to Harvard? And he would tell me, and we would just laugh at it because we knew it was true, but they didn't, because they were judging him based on who he was, based on where he was working. So I got done my master's, and I swear to you, it was so hard. After that, I said, I don't ever want to read another book again. I felt like that 1 year of my master's program, I read what I read in 5 years as an undergrad. But you know what I learned is that when people have high expectations for you, you will rise to that occasion. That when people believe in you, you will rise to that occasion. When you have people behind you that are looking up to you, you will rise to that occasion because you want to help and give back. So while I was at Harvard, you know, that 1 year that I said, I'm done. I'm not reading another book. I'm not going to pursue my PhD. This almost killed me. I was at a dinner with some local scholar friends, and there was a visiting scholar from UC Davis. Her name is Patricia Gándara, and she was working on this Harvard immigration project. And we all went out to dinner. And I remember talking, you know, we were talking, and she knew I had the scholarship, and she said, Lena, I want you to come and work with me. Apply to come to UC Davis. And I was like, okay, you know, and really not knowing, right? And I was so interested in migrant education. All my degrees are in education, by the way. I have my undergrad in bilingual education, my master's in language and literacy. And she was actually at the School of Education and Educational Policy. So, you know, I said, let me apply. And mistake number one, I only applied to one school for my PhD, and it was UC Davis. I was so fortunate to get in. But honestly, I was like, now looking back, I'm like, what was I thinking? You know, I should have applied to more. But anyhow, one of the wonderful things about getting a PhD, I came fully funded. My scholarship was still going to pay, and it paid for everything. I think my scholarship probably covered like $150,000 from all my years of education. However, when you're in a PhD program, a lot of times you can become a TA or become a research assistant, and it will cover your tuition, and they will give you a stipend, and it will cover your insurance. So think about this when you pursue a PhD program, because oftentimes they are fully funded. So you shouldn't have to pay anything. And the other thing I learned is that while you're getting your PhD and they're paying for your tuition, after a year or two, if you decide, I don't want to get a PhD anymore, I just want to walk away with my master's, I don't want to do this anymore, there's only a one-page form that you sign. It's called the form of like change of degree or something like that. And you can get your master's. You can walk away with the master's, and it's fully paid for. And it's very unheard of regular masters that are paid for, and or even funding that covers master's degrees. So that is one way that you can go about doing it without having to pay. So I was really fortunate to, you know, get it all paid for. So I came to UC Davis, and I'm going to wrap things up. After that, after I graduated in 2010, I actually ended up getting a postdoc at the medical center. So I ended up at the Center for Reducing Health Disparities, and I did research on Latino mental health. And I really didn't know anything about Latino mental health, but I had a qualitative research background, and that's what they needed. So I ended up in that position for 5 years. And let me tell you, talking about mental health needs to students and destigmatizing mental health is the best thing for my current job right now. It is one of the most important tools that I have. I want to make sure I leave some time for Annalisa. So let me move on. Oops, I went too far. I want to show you a picture of my mentors. So when I was in high school, this lady on the left, her name is Shannon Bowman. She put together, and a group of other people, this Hispanic Youth Symposium in Idaho. And that was the year that I got, that was one of the years when I got my scholarship to go to college. But not only that, but every year I would come back and I would do workshops. I would be a keynote speaker. I would be the MC. Like, I so believed in this program. And for many, many years, I would go back. In the middle is Dr. Gloria Rodriguez at the School of Education. So this is a picture and a reminder that when you see people who look like you as professors and with PhDs, it gives you hope that you too can be one day as well. On the right, this is Fabiola Juarez. This is the first person that ever gave me a scholarship to go to college. And it was a $2,000 scholarship, but that paid for the entire year at Boise State, you know, back in the day. And she made my dream come true. Because of her, I was able to go there. And I want to leave you with some quotes. One is for you to believe in yourself. And I love this one where it says, El primer paso no te lleva donde quieres ir, pero sí te saca de donde estás. And it literally translates to the first step does not take you to your destination, but it gets you out of where you're at. And I wanted to kind of share that one on The Sky is the Limit. And the last one, of course I struggle. I just don't quit. So thank you for letting me share.
Thank you so much, Dr. Mendez. I really appreciated that. And I'm sure the students did as well. We'll go on to our next person, who is Annalisa Teixeira. She is the Director and Resident and Fellow, the Director of Resident and Fellow Development at UC Davis Health.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
I know I'm kind of in the way of our Q&A, so I'm going to try to be a little more brief. But I want to start by just saying how touched I am to hear my colleagues' stories and what great reminders and inspiration I'm drawing from them. So thank you for sharing tonight. So my professional journey, I'm from Fairfield, California, not far from Davis. And my parents, my dad's family came from Hawaii and my mom's from Brooklyn. They ended up in Fairfield because of Travis Air Force Base. They were both first-gen college students. They were community college, transfer students, worked full-time, putting themselves through school. And I like to say, you know, when it was time for me to look at college, that I was standing on the shoulders of giants, right? All that they had paved for me in their sacrifice, that I had the privilege of how they navigated school to support me. I went to Chico State for my undergrad. I studied linguistics and Spanish. And I like to say too, with Chico State, you know, my parents not having what they called the full college experience. It was so important to my mom that I go straight to a 4-year, that I live in dorms, that I only work on campus, and my dad said that you have time for sports events, because we had none of that. We were just scraping by trying to earn that degree. So I had that college experience at Chico State, you know, tutoring, be involved in a lot of academic positions as I worked and completed my degrees. My mentor from Chico State here is Dr. Frank Lee, a linguistics professor. He was the one that really took such an active role in mentoring me. I felt up to that point I had been so passive in mentorship that I had gained much from observations and you know, learning from leaders in my spaces, but he was active in his mentorship. He invited me into his office. He started conversations. If I didn't follow up on something, and you know, where we had left off, he'd write me and where are you on that? And we talked a lot about my growth, you know, as a scholar in my interest in linguistics and Spanish. And so I graduated in 2009. And you can see the little dip here's kind of cut off in the picture, but we know what happened in 2009. So I thought I was going to be a Spanish high school teacher. I was ready to go into the credential program at Chico State. And they were handing out pink slips for teachers at that time. So I had to reorient. My mom was a school teacher, so you know, that was something I was following in her footsteps. But my mentor, he said, okay, you're a tutor, you love to teach, you you are a scholar. So have you thought about grad school? What about becoming a professor? You could teach in higher ed. And that was, something I didn't know how to navigate. I was not a first gen college student, but I would have been a first gen graduate student. Without his mentorship, I don't know, what my sights may have landed on, but he helped guide me in that. And when I got accepted to UC Davis, again, like Lena, the only school I applied for, I kind of see that as like this limiting belief that I wasn't sure I was going to get in, right? I'll just stay local, I'll apply to one school. But I got into UC Davis with his help and his great letter of rec. So I went to graduate school 2010, 2015 at Davis in the Spanish and Portuguese department. I'm a second language learner of Spanish, moving through spaces as I grew up. My mom's white, my dad, I have Filipino heritage. When you mix white and Filipino and you have a Filipino surname, Corioso, growing up, a lot of folks speak Spanish to you and you're a Californian citizen, right? So I was so drawn to learning Spanish. All those times someone wanted to reach me, communicate with me. Maybe they were asking for assistance in a space and I wanted to rise to that occasion and connect through language and culture. And I started to get curious about acquisition. How do adults, people later in life, learn a second language? Because I didn't start learning Spanish till I was a junior in high school. I was doing all these other extracurriculars and didn't take my language requirement until kind of later in high school. And so I studied how people learn language, and that involved a lot of learning science and a lot of teaching and pedagogy, and really enjoyed my program. Really loved being a TA, being in the classroom, teaching, and my office hours, connecting one-on-one with students, thinking bigger than just the class they were in with me, but what are their goals? What meaning are they making in their college experience? Where is this degree going to take them? Just found I had such intense curiosity about that. And I wanted to connect with the whole student in my office hours. And that made me reflect a lot about the professoriate, staying in my field, moving across the country to stay in academia versus staying within my community and having such strong value around being close to family. I took on staff positions as an advisor, doing training in staff roles while I was in grad school to do some exploration, and I found that fulfillment there. So I decided to stay at Davis, but in student affairs, and I transitioned to a role in student affairs the same quarter I finished my dissertation. And my supervisor, my first supervisor out of grad school, is in this space with us, Raynelle Hamilton. I worked at Office of Educational Opportunity and Enrichment Services as a retention counselor, where I got to use all that learning science knowledge to help students be effective and efficient in their classes, feel empowered to create change in make improvements with their learning goals. I did some work with pre-grad advising, sharing back out all that I learned navigating grad school, helping other undergrads at Davis apply for programs, be competitive, think about that, that growth. And then transition to a role doing success coaching and learning strategies. And through that experience, I had a great opportunity for professional development where I became a coach. I went through a coaching program with the UC Davis Continuing in Professional Ed. I'm a certified coach today, and this is where my mentoring really took off. Mentoring undergrads, mentoring graduate students, especially grad students who, were drawn to alternatives outside of academia. And what did my coaching training help me to do as a mentor? It helped emphasize my listening, being curious about others, asking people good questions and just holding the space and letting them explore. And of course, empowering people to reach their goals. And now I found myself at the School of Medicine, where I'm continuing to coach. I am working with physicians in training there. So we're talking about some of the same topics I talked about on the Davis campus: time management, productivity, effective learning strategies. And we're talking about fulfillment, their career design, and developing their leadership capacities. And I want to emphasize happenstance here with this position. So I wasn't looking for a new job when I applied for this position. I wasn't, and I was enjoying my role in success coaching, but I got tapped to be a guest lecturer for a pipeline program run through the School of Medicine called Prep Medico. And this is community college, CSU, and UC students, Latinx students who are interested in medicine. And I lectured on learning science. And I felt so engaged by the idea of not just supporting folks in their educational journey, but their journey to medicine and their desire to serve in a healthcare system, support the health of their community. And so that's the happenstance. I was on that campus, the SAC campus, doing that guest lecture. And I just said, I wonder what's going on at the School of Medicine. And I went and looked at the job postings that day, and this position came up, and it talked about all these skills I was using in my current role, and that this was a next step, a new challenge, a leadership opportunity. And so I applied, and it worked out. And if I hadn't given my time to that program, I would not even have looked at those job listings that day. So I just share that as an example of happenstance, right? The growth is rarely linear. We don't always plan every step. And in my reflection with my growth is the times where I gave my time, where I led with my passions, I made connections, that really helped shape a lot of the moves that I've made in my journey. And this one being just a really recent and powerful example of happenstance, right? Right place, right time, and opportunity arises. And so I'll end here. We're kind of at the hour. Did we just lose all our Q&A time? Advice: name your values, let them lead your decisions. There's so much comfort and power in having that alignment. Welcome happenstance, as I mentioned. And this one was huge for me. I mentioned how passive I was as a mentee in many parts of my life. Don't wait for mentorship, seek it out, ask for it. You deserve mentorship. It is fulfilling to mentor. I say that as a mentor, it is so fulfilling to listen to someone and help them reach their goals. I gain fulfillment, and I choose to give my time out of service. So those limiting beliefs, those things you tell yourself, oh, they're too busy, I don't want to bother them, I can just do this on my own. Set all that aside. You provide an opportunity for fulfillment when you're reaching out to your mentor, and you deserve it. You deserve mentorship. Do not talk yourself out of reaching for mentorship. Okay.
Okay.
I'm done, and there's no more time, so.
No, thank you so much. And we understand it is the hour. If you do have to leave, I understand that. But I would love to, first of all, thank all of our panelists for sharing your stories. I'm inspired deeply by your stories, and they're all so diverse, which is so wonderful. So at this time, if you do have questions, feel free to unmute yourself, or you can drop the question in the chat. No questions? There is someone said it's one of the best panels I've attended since being here at UCD. So again, thank you to our panelists. Awesome, definitely very inspiring. And I want to ask a question of each of you, and feel free to respond as you like. But we talked about mentors and everything, but how important was networking as a part of your journey as well?
I think networking is important. I'm a natural introvert. I'm not very good about walking up to people and talking to them. It's very challenging for me, very difficult for me. But I think that finding a person has been super helpful for me. I'm not very good in groups, but I am very good in one-on-one situations. So I always find the other introvert eating the carrots at the table. I always find that person to talk to that person and connect with that person. But I think networking is very important. And it does open up a lot of doors and opportunities for you as you continue, on your journey. So networking is important. It is important. Even if it's hard, it's still important.
Anyone else like to respond?
I would agree. I would agree. I think that's one of the cultural elements of Washington, D.C. and being in Washington, D.C. is that you're constantly in this networking mode. And that's something that I strive to bring when I write to Davis. While I do have a national network and folks that I stay connected with, via social media, LinkedIn, or other social media modalities. I'm a firm believer in the net does work, whether it is through your organizations that you're affiliated with, professional or social, but definitely reach out to expand that network of yours at a personal as well as a professional level. So I highly encourage to do so. And when folks invite you to connect, please take them up on that. Please take them up on that. You just never know where your paths will cross again. And of course, definitely utilize that network for your professional journey.
Awesome. And I see we have a couple of raised hands. One is Kayla Harvey. You want to unmute yourself and ask your question?
Oh, yeah. Hi, everyone. This was a great panel, like my favorite so far. I've just transferred to UC Davis, so I'm still pretty new. So this was very helpful to get to know you all. And I just want to thank you all so much for coming here and talking to us. I do have a question though on mentorship. Like, do you just go and ask someone, hey, can I be your mentor? How does that work exactly?
Did I just say, based on my personal experience, when I was looking for what a neuroscientist was or what was neuroscience as an undergraduate, I had no idea. I literally reached out to people. I emailed people and I was like, request for a meeting, or you can say like, just like, I'm interested in mentoring, interested in a mentoring relationship, for example. And I found that the two people that I emailed responded within like 24 hours, extremely excited. And they were not in Puerto Rico, they were in the United States. And first of all, I was scared because one of them was a male and I was like, maybe females will be nicer, but I was pleasantly surprised. And I think that it's on us to take the first step. Not everybody's going to come and be like, hey, I want to mentor you, right? And so we need to be strategic. And I decided to find somebody that was doing the research that I thought I wanted to do. And then the other person was a Puerto Rican female scientist. So yeah, so I actually reached out, and I don't know what the experience for others, but I still do it. I still seek out mentors like that too. I email people.
Okay, that's amazing. Thank you.
I also see another question in the chat that I want to make sure we answer, and it's actually coming from Josiah. And he's asking, like, why is it not a good idea to go to school like undergrad and graduate? And I want to answer that. Well, I know Connie can answer it too, but I think it just really depends. One of the reasons why they discourage it is because a lot of times you have the same faculty. So depending if you, for example, get your undergrad in biology and you want to get your master's in biology too, you end up with the same faculty. So if you go somewhere else, you have just different people that do different things, that think differently, and it exposes you to different people.
Yeah, it also expands your network of individuals that you can learn from and who can mentor you. And yeah, I mean, it just, growth doesn't happen when you're comfortable. And so you need to you need to push yourself a little bit so that you are a little bit uncomfortable, and then you will grow, right? So it's never a comfortable process, but I mean, we all survive with a little discomfort.
Great questions. Do we have more questions to our panelists? Okay, well, the hour is.
There's one regarding the transfer student. I'm sorry, Lolita.
Oh,
advice to connect with professors with limited time on campus as a transfer student. Samantha mentioned.
Yes, would anyone like to take that question?
I'll start it off if that's okay. I think, something that you want to realize is that a lot of these professors are there and they want to help. So I think just going and interacting with them. I think one thing that allows actually professors to open up and know you more is when you start letting them know what your future goals are, especially if you're thinking about graduate school. As soon as you tell a professor that you're thinking about graduate school, you'd be surprised how much that they can share with you and resources they can share with you, even if it's not graduate school. Know that they could be a conduit for different opportunities that are out there. So definitely just make sure to know that they are resources for you.
Well, so I also want to add to that sometimes some faculty are super busy and they might miss your emails. So sometimes you're feeling like, oh, they're not emailing me back. I mean, they haven't even checked it, so I would just say, continue to email, continue to check up. And also if they respond to you and it's not in a warm, loving, caring way, don't take it personal. I know it feels personal, but you're amongst 30,000 plus students on this campus. Honestly, they won't remember you from anybody else, but you got to keep showing up. And one of my advice to the transfer students were, when you're in class, turn on your camera. I know sometimes it's hard and you all want to have it off, but when you turn on your camera, they're going to see you. They're going to see your name. So when you email, to want something, they're going to remember you. So, keep that in mind.
And I've worked on campus for 13 or so years, and I can count on my hand the number of faculty who haven't been so nice. Most faculty on campus are really, really nice. I think that's one of the advantages of being at UC Davis, is that they genuinely are nice people. UC Davis just recruits nice people. And so, don't be afraid to put yourself out there, because most faculty are really, really nice and really, really supportive of students. So don't be afraid. And if you are a little nervous about clicking the send button on the email, reach out to me, reach out to Dr. Mendez, reach out to Jose and say, like, does this sound right? Is this okay? Because we're more than welcome to take a peek at those emails to let you know, or to give you some feedback on what those communications look like. We've been around for a while. We can give you some good tips that I think will be helpful in getting a response from a faculty member. So.
And also, please utilize the social media, utilize LinkedIn, utilize Facebook, Instagram, other. If you're not receiving a response, find other modalities to connect with them, because as Dr. Mendez mentioned, as Raynelle mentioned, that folks are busy. I mean, 30,000 plus students that they're working with, and definitely don't take it personal, but find other modalities to connect with them on if you're not receiving a response.
There is a question in the chat. How did you guys know you were on the right path? And did you ever feel discouraged from fulfilling this by academic setbacks?
Oh, absolutely. I think anyone who has gotten a PhD, there are times that you're just like, forget this thing. I don't want to do this anymore. Is this really the life I want? Do I want to be like that? Do I want to miss out on so much? And there's always kind of, your peers that kind of keep you, and some of you who make it. And honestly, I know for me, a lot of it was looking back and looking at high school students and undergrads that were looking at us, that were, who were us. When you sit in those chairs, we see ourselves. So I just want to encourage you that you give us so much hope to continue fighting and continue to reach our goals.
If I may add, please.
Okay. Thank you, Mark. I was just going to speak to the right path. I am a very analytical person, and thinking about the right steps, I was always such a strategizer, right? Planning ahead. And what I found so freeing in knowing, am I on the right track, is doing a gut check and leaving all the logic and the strategizing and the analysis aside and going, do I like what I do? Do I like how I do it? Does it give me energy? I'm on the right track. And if it's not, okay, where am I getting that energy? What's the move? What's the pivot to make? So kind of tapping into intuition and the gut. And I think sometimes, in these academic spaces we can overemphasize kind of the logic and the analysis. And certainly there's so much external pressure that aims to guide us on the right path, but check that gut and see, what your emotions are telling you about your purpose.
Yeah, and just to add really quickly to that, make sure that you'll have a diversity of experiences, and then pay attention to your feelings when you're having those experiences, right? So yeah, maybe you are, absolutely like, I'm doing this degree in physics and you're taking a lot of physics classes, but make sure you do other things too, and pay attention to those feelings, because they'll help inform you about your future choices.
Great. One other question in the chat I see, they're saying, thank you for sharing. They joined late, but they wanted to know if there was ever a time when you doubted yourself and whether going into the PhD program was for you or not, and how did you overcome it?
All the time, all the time. And after you finish your PhD, you're gonna continue questioning, am I good enough for this position? Or when we are the first, when we come from disadvantaged backgrounds, when we still continue moving up the ladder and continue to see that as we continue to move up, there's less and less of us. It's a natural feeling that you're gonna feel like, am I doing the right thing? Do I belong? And you have to go back and look at your CV and your accomplishes, or you have to talk to your mom. Like my mom is my reminder of all the things that I've accomplished, and she has framed all the certificates and all the, the little things that to me are like, even this panel, if I show her the flyer, she probably puts it somewhere in the house. And so I think that you need to have those people that are cheering you on, not only your mentors, but your family is to me is a big deal. They keep me grounded, and they also push me forward. And we have to also remember that we earned it. It was not given to us. And there's a difference. And so when you think about it that way, you're like, there's no way anybody's gonna take this away from me. And so I think that that's the best thing. And that's another thing, like grandmas always say that they can take everything away from you, but they cannot take away your education. And there's so much value into that, right? It's powerful.
Thank you.
I just wanted to quickly add, so Dr. Mendez says she goes back to read her thank you, all her thank you letters in her office. And I also, I keep all those little, I call them love notes, little love notes. Yeah. That people send me, thanking me for little things. And so students, I just a little plug, we all need a little lifting up every now and then. And so if there's someone in your life who's done something for you that you found meaningful, maybe they don't even appreciate, they don't know that you really appreciated it or how impactful they were. And so send them just a little, like, 3-sentence little love note in their inbox. And I keep those in a special folder, and I go back and I read them, and they mean a lot to me. And sometimes I even forward them to my parents.
If I may chime in, Lolita, just to piggyback off Dr. Colon Rodriguez's comments, every day while in graduate school, both at the master's level and PhD level, this notion of imposter syndrome, do I belong here, was very real, very salient. As she mentioned, the higher you go and persist throughout your career, the less and less there are of people that look like us. You see it at Davis, you see it in higher ed across the country. But I think what retained me when I did want to leave, and it was often my doctoral program, was that I had a community, not just in the College of Education, but across the entire campus, Black and brown graduate students who I connected with were often like me, that one brown face in their program. And we found each other, whether it was through the Black Graduate Student Association, whether it was through the Latino Graduate Student Association, but we found each other in this big campus to stay connected, to uplift, to retain ourselves, regardless of our academic backgrounds, regardless. But we had this sense of connection because we were not only one of a few, but we needed each other in order to persist towards our master's and doctoral degrees. So wherever you are in your journey, master's or PhD, connect with folks on your campus. Connect outside of your department. If you can, cool. Within your department, absolutely. But definitely find that community of individuals who are going to uplift you, that are going to retain you, that are going to assist you in persisting towards your dissertation defense and graduation. I think that was a major factor for my success in staying retained and succeeding as a doctoral student.
So I do want to be respectful of the time, but the chat is blowing up with questions. So if you do have to go, I understand that, and thank you for joining us. But if you are able to stay, and especially to our panelists, and you'd like to continue to answer questions, we greatly appreciate it. I will go on to the next one. Someone who just graduated and they wanted to know, they're a transfer student, and wanted to know, would they still be able to connect with a mentor now, even though they've already graduated?
I think I'll chime in and say, a lot of people think that a mentor is somebody that you go and ask, can you be my mentor? I think that doesn't tend to often happen directly out. Mentors are going to be folks that you see as a champion, right? Somebody that you connected with. And a lot of times that could be somebody that you reach out back to even after you graduated, somebody you connected with. And so I think really what you're looking for is somebody who's going to be that person that's going to give you that lift, right? Is you're going through these different things in your life or different journeys. So I think definitely reflect back on who are some people that you connected with and who are going to people that are going to serve for you in that corner. So I think, it doesn't, you don't have to be enrolled. It could be somebody that you made a connection. I think they'll always be there for you if you had a good connection.
The next question, did anyone take a gap year before attending a master's or PhD program?
I think I saw the responses from, I think, Dr. Mendez and Dr. Lopez, but I did, a lot of students have asked me, and why did I do a postbac program? And a lot of students don't know what a postbac program is, which is a 1 year that you take and you do research and you're paid for. The classes are paid for that you take, and you get a stipend and you do research in a field, whatever the program is focused on. And my bachelor's was in microbiology. I want to do neuroscience as a grad student. And so in order to become competitive, for entering a neuroscience program, I needed neuroscience research more than just a summer. And so I did a postbac program in neuroscience. And I highly recommend it for students that are thinking about it or haven't had extensive research experience, because they pay also for GRE practice and a lot of the applications for grad school too.
Okay, and thank you for answering the chat as well. So I see a lot of the questions were answered. At this time, I see that there was a reference to the compost program that is offered tomorrow, and Dr. France is on the call. Would you like to say hello and also share a little bit more information about that?
Yeah, I want to first just thank and acknowledge the amazing speakers. Thank you again for sharing your inspiring stories. I also, because the faculty connection came up, I just wanted to draw students' attention to the Campus Colloquium. And you'll notice at an event like this, there's often the informal opportunity to talk to faculty. So similar to this, you can hear not just the science, but some of the personal stories for some of our most impressive and diverse faculty. And so one of my colleagues in the chemistry department, Professor Jesus Velasquez, will be talking tomorrow, and there's specifically time for informal Q&A. And that's the best time to, kind of stick around, say hi, start that networking. And I know personally that Dr. Velasquez is extremely passionate about mentoring, and he's the type of person you can follow up with. And they have an ongoing colloquium series, so you can learn about faculty in all different areas. And it's just one of many opportunities in addition to these wonderful panels that I hope students will take advantage of. So thank you again to our speakers. Yeah.
Awesome. And again, it's 8:52, so I don't want to keep you all evening. I'd like to thank everyone again for participating. And contact information, is it okay if I share that with everyone who was on the call? Yes, okay. Again, thank you for tuning in tonight, and have a great evening.